Hi there, everybody. This is Wendy Hernandez, and welcome back for another episode of the Family Law Insider podcast. Today, I have with me an expert on adoption, Regina Radomski, and she's not an expert in the legal sense of adoption, but she is an expert in the practical sense of adoption. She has been through the battlefield of adoption, and while many people think of adoption as a very happy thing, it can be, but there are also difficult things that are associated with adoption that a lot of people don't realize or understand, nor are they ready to deal with once they hit. So Regina is the author of From Half to Whole. She's the owner of Fill in the Blanks, and the tagline is, How does a family mesh after the agency leaves? So thank you for joining me, Regina.
Thank you for having me.
So, Regina, tell me about your adoption journey. When did you adopt? Why did you adopt? And what happened?
Okay. In the year 2003, I had just gone through three in vitros that failed, and my father was dying. And the night before he died, he said to me, nothing's working for you. Why don't you look at adopting? Because there are kids out there that need help. So it had always been in me since I was a child, and I thought it would be a good idea, but my husband wasn't really on board. So I had heard about a group called CPFA in New Jersey, and they worked with adoptive families, and they gave you support emotionally and gave you a lot of guidance. So they were having a conference in a few weeks, and so we went. And when we got there, my husband's biggest fear was that he would never be accepted as the father, and he would always be the outsider. So when we got there, there was a Korean woman who spoke, and she talked about her experience at her father's funeral. And when someone came up to her and said, "Well, it wasn't really your father anyway," she was really taken back and said, "This is the man that raised me. There was no other father." And so that was in the first 15 minutes of the conference, and my husband wrote me a note and said, "Let's do it." So we went forward from there, and a year and a half later, we were introduced to our boys, and we went to Poland, and we met them, and they were at the time 5 and 7 years old. We already had a 9-year-old, so I knew how to be a mom, and we thought it would be a really easy transition. But being in the house with just the three of us was so different than being in a house with five of us. It went from calm, cool, and collected to major chaos. And there was so much I felt out of control with, and it was really disheartening because the idea of bringing children here and giving them a stable home, you kind of want it that way from the beginning.
Right.
But they don't understand love and unite a family unit, and we don't understand what they've been through, especially at the ages of 5 and 7. So it just really was difficult, and I really started to look at what can I do to help people once I got out of the realm of it all and was able to function again. What can I do to help people really function better in the household? So I look at those types of things, and I'm helping people with that.
Okay, and I want to delve into that. I have a couple questions about the boys that you adopted.
Okay.
So they were 5 and 7 years old,
Yes.
and then you had a 9-year-old.
Yes.
Was it a boy or a girl, the
A
9-year-old?
boy. So I have all boys.
Okay. And did the boys that you adopted from Poland, did they speak English?
No, they
Okay.
didn't speak English, and we didn't speak Polish.
All right. And did you make the decision to adopt them after a visit or two to Poland, or how did that work? Or did you just go pick them up?
We found out about them through actually my husband's HR department at work. We found out the lady that was putting everything together, and we worked with her probably a little over a year. Then we got their portfolio, and we looked at it, and we said, okay. And this was after getting another referral for two boys that were older than my biological son. And the social workers didn't feel that was a good fit. They don't want you to change the birth order. So we had to say no, and that really bothered us because we had just gotten the paperwork in, and it was within a few hours that we got that referral. And then we didn't know, first of all, what was going to happen to those boys, which we felt bad about, but we didn't know now how long we were going to have to wait. But it was only a few weeks, and we found the referral on our boys, and we read everything over, and we were able to ask questions to the orphanage, and we did that. And within about 4 months, we then went to Poland to meet them. And we went for 3 weeks. We lived with them. We were told that they were going to go home back to the orphanage at night, but they never did. Once they came, they stayed because they had other siblings in the orphanage.
Uh-huh.
So their sister actually went to another family, and that was all done together at the same time. And we're still very much in touch. We talk all the time. But their older sibling never left the orphanage at that point. So we went. We spent the 3 months, the 3 weeks with them because they wanted us to really get to know each other. They separated us and their sister because they didn't want any interactions where the children would then decide that they wanted to change families or anything like that. And they didn't let us go back to the orphanage because they didn't want their older sibling to be involved or see them again. So it was really tough because when we went there, we didn't know all of this was going to unfold.
Yeah.
So when we were ready to leave Poland to come home, they said, "Well, we have to put the boys in another area, and it's in this hospital out in near the Czech Republic." And we went there with them. It was about a 4-hour drive, and they were left there. And they threw this on us while we were there that, well, we're going to put them there. You got to pay for it. This is where they're going to stay. And thankfully, it was only $12 a night for the two of them because when we thought about that bill, we didn't know, it was unexpected. But
Right.
they went there and they don't talk about that time very much, so I don't know really what happened there. But I do know that all the clothes we had bought them 3 weeks before did not come back with them. They had a pair of shoes with a hole in them that wasn't given to them when we left, and no clothes. So I have no idea what happened there. Then we came back for a week and then went, no, I'm sorry, we came back for 3 weeks, then went back for a week to get them.
Okay. What a, I mean, journey. And, one of the questions I have that, maybe a lot of people think about when they're deciding whether to adopt is, why adopt an older child versus an infant? And do you have any thoughts or considerations that people should think about?
Well, in our case, we didn't want the children to be too far apart in age. We had a 9-year-old already, and we wanted it to be close to that. But in Poland, the stipulation was you couldn't be 40 years older than the child. So I was already in my 40s, so I could only go with, I think I was 43, so I could only go with a 3-year-old or older. So
Oh,
that
wow.
kind of just made the decision, and we also felt we wanted to keep a family together. So we took in 3 out of the 4 kids because the other family and us stayed very close. So they
Okay.
haven't lost touch with her.
Okay. All right. So let's start with if somebody is thinking of adopting, what should they think about? What should they be asking themselves, or what questions should they be clear on?
Um, they have to know what they want and they have to stick to it. If you feel that you can't deal with a special needs child, work through that with yourself, but know it's okay. Don't feel guilty about it because this is a lifelong decision. So if you take in a special need, say someone, just as an example, in a wheelchair, and you're not equipped for that, and you don't feel that you can do it, don't do it unless you meet that child face to face and things change. But this is a lifelong decision, and if you don't make the right decision for your family, it's going to be a lot worse than you can even imagine for the child and for you because you're the caregiver and you're going to have to keep moving on. Um, know whether you want race to be a factor in it or not. Some people are comfortable with that, some people are not. And you have to think about the child and what they're going to feel once it's presented to everybody else. In our case, whatever my husband wanted at that point, I was going to say yes to, and he really wanted the children to blend and just look like a family. And if we wanted to talk about it, we could talk about it. Never knowing that I was going to be the one that got into all of this. Now that was never part of the plan when this started. So it's my biological son looks like my coloring, and my two adopted children look just like my husband, blonde hair, blue eyes, and so we look like a family. And without anyone knowing, they wouldn't know any different. So you have to do what you're comfortable with, and research your countries, see what you're comfortable with there too, because I wasn't comfortable with certain countries, so we didn't explore them.
Regina, I've heard talk about, well, there's so many kids here in the United States who need homes or in foster care. So, what things should people think about in deciding whether maybe to be a foster parent or adopt from within the United States versus going outside the country.
Yeah, they should look into that. I didn't go in there because I had already been through all those in vitros and my father had just died. And I didn't want to take anyone in that then was going to be taken away from me in the foster care system. My brother did that and they had a tough time with it, but I don't say that that's always the case. There's a lot of people it works for. I do see a lot of Facebook groups now that have a lot of information with that. One of them is creating a family. I think it's called Creating a Family Through Adoption and Infertility. And they talk about that a lot, and there's a lot of people out there that know. So I would reach out to people to see if that's the right decision for you or not. When it came to um, doing domestic adoption, I was concerned that the mother would have a say in it and then take the child away. And I had been through so much with my mother dying also before all of that that I just couldn't go there. If it scared me, so that's what I was comfortable with going out of the country and knowing that the mother wouldn't have a connection.
Okay. Okay. So you had been through, I mean, I'm hearing just loss with, your parents, your mother, your father, and then just your own experience with infertility.
Yes,
How long had you been going through that?
that was 3 years.
Okay. All right. So you guys made the decision, you went for it, you got the boys, and then your house was turned upside down. How
Yes.
did you protect your biological child?
Well, he's a special kid, I have to say. He just always felt, even when we were in Poland with them and things were really chaotic, that they needed a home and no matter what, we should take them. And we all felt they didn't deserve to live in an orphanage. They were wild. They had been on the streets for a while. They were in the orphanage. They didn't know rules. They were just crazy, and they'll say, "Yeah, we were just out of control." And now when they skim through the book and they read it, they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't even know we did half of that stuff." So,
Wow.
they never did it intentionally, but we weren't equipped. For as much as I'd like to say we were, I wasn't. That's for sure. My husband got to leave and go to work, so he got a break from it, and I didn't. But 5 years in, I learned about total transformation, and that changed our world. They're a company that works with parental strategies, and I'm working with them somewhat now, and they really helped me understand how to get myself out of a lot of situations, how to make the child responsible for themselves, responsible that they go to school, they have to follow the rules, learned how to stop the fighting because literally every day in my house was a blood brawl. There was blood, there was broken bones, there was from
Oh
one
my,
end of the house to the other. Um, I had to learn, how to get them to the ground, grapple them to the ground, and calm them down. Where, and while I was doing that, I was falling apart, and a lot of times my husband couldn't see it because when he walked in, there was a different situation going on. And then one day it was funny. One of the kids had put on a tape recorder and left it on, and we didn't realize it. And I was at a funeral in Rhode Island, and my husband called me and said, "What is on this tape recorder?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I can't believe what I heard in here." And I said, "Well, I remember the day, and I can tell you that was calm compared to what usually happens here." So it was a real eye opener to him because, as I hear in all families, there's always a different relationship between the mother and the father when it comes to the children. And, I wasn't used to that. Me and my biological son were very close. We never had any of those issues. So now my goal is to help these parents, even it could happen before the children come, to learn some of these strategies so they can be empowered before the kids come. Learn how to streamline the household so that things become second nature, so that when you're going from a family with no children to a family with two children or one child, you know, just walking out the door in the morning is a whole different ball game. So to learn that stuff and just have it under your belt before the kids come, it'll give them a more stable home and it'll make you more in control.
yeah. I mean, it definitely sounds like people need to have this in mind at the beginning of the process.
Right.
Um, and Regina, I've heard of cases where people realize or find out after they've adopted children, and it could be years, that that the child is special needs, which I think might add a layer of complexity to an already dicey situation, for lack of
Right,
a better
right,
word.
right.
Do either of your boys have special needs?
My one son was labeled with ADHD. I didn't go the pharmaceutical route. I worked with strategies and I worked with alternatives, and it was a struggle. It was very hard. But I have to say, he just left a few minutes ago, and he's 17, and he's driving to school. We have him in Votech, and I have found the right combination of things for him to sleep and things for him to take during the day, and all natural. No, if he doesn't take it, there's no side effects, and that was very important to me. And I have to say, I'm really proud of him. He's been getting 95s now on his tests. The struggles the past few years have been horrendous with him. He was one who always needed to find his place, so we always wanted to fight in order to get his place, and it caused a lot of trouble in school. And I really just answered the phone when the school called, and my line was, what could it possibly be now? Because I didn't know there was no use in saying hello. I knew there was trouble on the other end, but through strategies and through total transformation teaching me to have them right when they were younger, it taught them how to think about next time. Not to say, why did I do this? Because they don't understand that at this age. It said, okay, next time I'm dealing with this situation, what can I do differently? How do I turn it around so it doesn't happen? And even though we don't do that anymore and it's not really talked about, I think that gave them a core to change, because I even see his reactions to things differently now. He's calming down faster. He's realizing, at 17, you're realizing different consequences than you did when you were 10.
Right.
So I'm very proud of them. My other son, we left him back in 8th grade, and that is something I feel is really key. If your child is coming here older, first of all, they've been through trauma, and they are not the same biological age mentally. So they're going to be younger, and they also, if they have a language difference, they're behind.
Yeah.
So I would leave them back a year to begin with. So if they're in 1st grade, leave them back in kindergarten, because we just did that with our 8th grader and last year, and what a change. He went from failing to A's and B's, and the maturity level is much more there. He was excelling until 6th grade. Then all of a sudden he fell apart, and he didn't want to catch up, and he didn't want to admit it. He was better off at just being a smart aleck, and playing video games and not doing his homework. Now he's back to where he was in 4th and 5th grade, coming home, doing his homework, getting A's and B's, and we're not doing anything. We're not even helping him with his homework. So you have to look at that stuff. That was so important, and I can't stress that enough.
That's okay. That's awesome. So the name of the program you mentioned is Total Transformation,
Yes, total transformation.
and is that the system that you use to coach people?
That's part of what I'm using, yes. They used to be one big program, and now they've cut them down into smaller programs, and it makes it much easier to handle. So I just started a meetup group here in New Jersey, and that's going to be my goal, is to use a meetup group and have a seminar just on one of those, like what two parents, one plan, or how to get through to your child. And that getting through to your child is really good because it gives you 8 questions to work off of. So instead of getting the emotions in there, you sit down with the 8 questions, and you need to think of it like a business dealing, and you talk them through it. And if they're not ready to cooperate, you say, okay, no electronics until you're ready to sit down. When you're ready, we'll be able to move forward. And it talks about, what did you see that was wrong, and how do you fix that, and what can you do? Give me some solutions. And if they're ridiculous answers, you tell them, nope, that's not it. Why don't you go and sit in the other room for a few minutes, or go do something else and come back when you have a better answer. And things like that really teach you how to take a step back and not get so emotionally involved. And I can see the level in me when I speak to them is much different. It used to be very emotionally enraged, and now, I still get it a little bit, but not to the extent where I could feel my veins popping out of my neck anymore. And I used to tell myself, calm down. Why are you getting like this? Just relax. And you just can't get yourself out of it because they hit a nerve in you that, you just, never felt before. So
Yeah.
you need to learn how to get past that because you're the one who needs to be in control. And
Yeah.
so working on it all these years, I've gotten better. I'm not perfect, but I'm a lot better.
Yeah.
And we all have to remember none of us are going to be perfect. You don't want perfection.
Exactly. That's right. So what did this adoption do to your marriage? Did it affect it?
Oh, I'd say yes. It made us stronger now, years later, but there were times when, it was really tough, and you have to really make sure that the two of you are important to each other, and you have to learn to become a united front. And there's times that it doesn't work, but that has to be your goal. I feel that a child who's been through dysfunctional families, especially coming to you at an older age, I think that they only know dysfunction. So when they're in a loving household, they do something to turn it around. I did read a book, and the name of it was Troubled Transplants. And it talked about children having a reverse effect on a family. And I think that's what my youngest son had there for a while. He wanted the dysfunction. He wanted to see me and daddy fight. And now I completely understand divorce on the other side of adoption. I never could understand it before. To me, it was like, you went through all of this. You wanted this family. How could this happen? But if you're not on the same page with the rules and everything that goes on, it can happen very easily. You can go down that slippery slope in a heartbeat, I feel. Um, I felt we never were going to get divorced, but there were times where we just didn't talk, and it was over sometimes really stupid things that would just blow up because the stress level in the house was so big.
Wow.
And so, one of the total transformation programs is two parents, one plan. And I think that can really teach people a lot in how to deal with things away from the children. And I feel that you've just got to know that you brought these kids here for a stable family, and you always have to work towards that.
Yeah.
And now, is that always possible? No, but if you're being disrespected or anything like that, you have to look at different options for what works for you.
I wonder if it's the case in New Jersey or anywhere that you know of where do parents have to go through like some sort of mandatory training or classes prior to adopting, Regina?
When I was going through it, there was a little bit, but now with the Hague Convention, they've strictened things up. I think there's more to it now than it was when I went through it, and that's why I want to do this because I really want people to look at their backgrounds. Like your husband and you did not have the same upbringing, so did you sit at the dinner table? Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe he did, maybe you didn't, and now there's a problem. So get that stuff figured out before. And this is for just parenting in general.
Right.
Look at the religious backgrounds. Look at the dinner table. Look at the bedtime routine. Are you going to make dinner every night or are you going to go out to eat every night? My goal is to teach quick meals. I partnered with someone that's going to teach quick meals, give you the basics that you can grow on. Look at the backgrounds, look at the parenting programs, and look at streamlining the household. I have another woman I partnered with also. She comes in and she says, "Okay, you were in business suits walking out the door as only a wife at that point. Now you have a baby. That baby throws up on you. Now you need to have all this stuff with you. How do you get ready to walk out that door to drop them off at the babysitter?" So she gets you ready for all of that stuff so that, practicing this stuff will help you, I think.
That's amazing. I mean, that's really great stuff. And like you said, I mean, it's not just good for people who are have adopted or are adopting. I think just parents in general, because I will say I had my daughter when I was 40. Talk about shock to the
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
You
it
know?
is. It is.
So, okay, so somebody's adopted, and I remember when I had my daughter, she came 5 weeks early, and then we brought her home from the hospital, and I was just like thinking about, okay, I'm going to get through the birth process. I
Mhm.
wasn't thinking about necessarily what happens when I get home, and I was like shell shocked. I'm like, what now?
Me too.
So,
I felt like I was in the twilight zone.
yeah. So I wonder if adoptive parents sometimes feel that way. They go through this long process, and then they get there and they're so happy, and then they get home, and then it's like, whoa, life
What
is
do I do?
What do I do? So what do they, can you just give us some tips? It's, a few tips on what do they do? Where do they turn? What do they need to look at for themselves?
Well, I would try beforehand getting into an adoption support group that will feed your emotions, that you can go and cry to, that you can, just hash it out with someone else that's been through it. To me, sometimes that's better than therapy because they have the real life experience, and I feel that they helped me more than I could ever thank them enough for because I used to go there and my hair, in the book I have a line, well, as soon as I walked into the meeting, they knew how I was by the look of my hair. It was either frizzy and horrendous or it was calm and nice looking. And now my hair, I have to say, looks great all the time because the stress level is much less. But like you don't even have time to put makeup on anymore. I didn't realize that I think my boy's mother must have like put on her makeup and walked out the door and then disappeared because when they first came, if I walked outside, I live on a cul-de-sac and my neighbors were all around and they all knew what was going on. They knew me for years. And if I walked outside and I just wanted to put lip gloss on because I wanted to feel like myself again, I would come in and the havoc that was wreaked on me was horrendous. They would go nuts on me. And I asked them one day, did your mother like walk outside and say she was going to talk to somebody and never come back? And they were kind of like, yeah. And it hurt them a lot, but I didn't know that, and they weren't speaking English all that well at that point. I had someone translating. So if you have a barrier with the language, see if you can connect with someone that can come to the house. She was 19. She did it out of the goodness of her heart. She came. She was around the corner from us, and she was there constantly. And I feel having her as a mentor for them was a big help. And I think finding mentors for children is a great thing because they can go out in the basketball field, the court, or throw a ball back and forth, and they can learn so much from the child and get so much out of them that we can as the parent. So
Yes.
I'm also trying to connect with someone that connects adult adoptees to adopted children for a mentoring session. They're not in New Jersey yet, but I'm working on it. So I think these things are really helpful. Um, Not to say therapy isn't going to work, but I think you'll get more out of someone if you have someone that you can just throw a ball around with. So look into those things. Look into streamlining your household and what can you do? How can you make it easier on yourself? How can you remind yourself of things without having to think about it? Like just an example, if your child has flute practice at the school that day on a Thursday, on Wednesday night you put a little picture of a flute up on the door so that when you're walking out the door, there's the flute, and you just pick it up and go, and you don't have to think about it. Oh my God, I forgot it, and just things like that make it so simple.
Yeah, yeah. Those are excellent tips. Great tips. And so I imagine that there's a lot more that people can learn from you in the book. So Regina, it's time to end already. So
Okay.
can you tell people how they can find you and a little bit about your book, please?
Okay, yes, my site is reginaradomski.com, RADOMSKI. My business is Fill in the Blanks. You'll find my book on there also. The book is From Half to Whole, a journey to overcome the adoption. I'm sorry, a journey to overcome the battle scars of adoption and living to tell about it. Some people think that word battle scars is a tough word, but I think it really truly talks to both sides of adoption. It's hard for them and it's hard for us. Um, I'm also starting a second book. I'm working on that now to expand on the things that I feel are important for people to know, sitting at the dinner table, be around. Try to find a job where you can work from home a few days a week so someone's here when those kids get off the bus, things like that. Um, and I now have a meetup group. I'm also on Facebook, Fill in the Blanks, FILLIN apostrophe the blanks. And I also have a private Facebook group called Conquering Adoption that I'm working on getting started. There's not much going on with it right now, but I'm hoping to get that moving where people have an outlet to talk.
Oh, it's just such beautiful work you're doing, Regina, and I have not heard of anybody doing what you're doing, and so I'm gonna have to commend you for it.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for that.
No
And
problem. My book is on Amazon, and an audio book is coming out soon.
Excellent. So, for anybody out there who's considering adoption or who's just gone through an adoption or has been through adoption and it's been a while and they need support, reach out to Regina. She has a lot of resources and a lot to offer. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Family Law Insider. Thank you for joining us, and remember, we're on your side when it matters most. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.